Okay, in this chapter, we're going to talk about credit. We will look at the different aspects of credit, how it's built, how to maintain it, how it may be impacted by our decisions, and ultimately the purpose of credit. So, for this section or this unit, and this is unit 4, if you look at your financial freedom textbook that you were given. It's the workbook textbook that was given to you at the beginning of the course. And you turn to page 43. Page 43 in that entire chapter, which I believe is chapter 4, covers the information. So the first thing you want to understand is to go through the chapter after watching the video, after recording your notes, and to essentially just understand what credit is all about. Within the next few weeks, we will be going over interest rates and a few of the topics that are mentioned within the video. The first thing you want to understand within the chapter, it's going to talk about the definition of credit, the differences between a debit and a credit card. We've already gone over the Consumer Protection Act, so you understand which acts cover and protect the use of credit cards versus debit cards. You will understand how to read and interpret a credit report, which we have already completed in class or will complete in class within the next few weeks, and you will see a few examples within the video this evening. Also, it's going to discuss ways that you can establish credit, understand what a credit card offer is communicating to you or entails, reasons why a person may be denied credit or have a higher interest rate based on decisions that were made, whether they were made by choice or made by circumstance, the importance of credit scores and how they are used in America, how to achieve and maintain a good credit score, and the difference between good and bad debt. So for this section in the unit, you're going to go into chapter 4, and it will start on page 43. I encourage you to do some of the activities as they are listed throughout page 43 through 54. Okay, this slide, we're going to look at the different credit scores. The chart that you see is going to vary from what's on the actual website that I posted in Canvas, so I'm going to indicate it. However, I like the colors that were used to explain the differences between the credit score, and definitely for those of you that are visual, I believe that the colors will assist you in remembering it. Also, another disclaimer, where you see the 30% of people, 13, 18, 34, and 16%, I am unable to confirm those exact statistics because we normally get that information later in the year and it's researched. However, what we're going to look at are the actual scores and the names of the categories. So, for the first one, and this is actually on our Canvas page, if you have a credit score between the range of 750 to 850, it is considered excellent. At this point, you're going to be approved for mostly everything. The interest rate will be extremely low, if any at all. So when you see offers like 0% down or 0% APR, that's exactly the range that would typically receive it. The other range that you may find individuals who will be able to receive 0% APR would fall within the good range. So if you're excellent, which a lot of people are not able to really maintain it the entire year, understand the credit score will fluctuate throughout the year. It's going to fluctuate over the course of several years. So for 4 months, you may have a credit rating of 700, and then this credit rating can go up to 750, and you apply for a car loan, and the credit score stays the same. The car loan is paid on time, and it's going to remain fine. But if your car loan is paid late, then the credit score may drop. So it's going to fluctuate based on whatever decisions and choices are ultimately made in life. So if we had to compute the credit scores to an actual letter grade in school, if you have a excellent credit score, then typically you will have the grade of an A. This is a rating status. It basically communicates to the potential lender that you have used your credit wisely, you have been considered capable of paying your bills on time, and also keeping a relatively low balance. So that's important because it's explaining that this person may not actually need credit as a survival, but they're using it in their best interest. It also means that you carry like lower balances on larger loans, or you're paying it on time or early. So an excellent credit score is definitely something to strive for. But if you don't reach it at first, understand that you still have time, and know that the credit scores will fluctuate over the course of your lifetime. The second rating that we will look at will be good. And a good rating is considered to be comparable to a B average. So this one, we have a greater range of people that fall in this category, and the credit score that you see is correctly indicated. So if you have a good score, it doesn't mean that it's not the best, it's good. So you're going to be approved for most things that you apply for at this rate. It's also explaining that your credit payment history has been relatively good. You've been able to keep a solid income, and your ability to repay any past debts is excellent. So with this, you're not going to have a lot of interest when you open up an account, whether it be a loan, you're applying for another line of credit, such as a credit card. It's going to be relatively manageable because you've shown yourself to be worthy, and you fall in the green status or the AB range. Okay, the next category we're going into will be the fair range. And for the fair range, you would have a credit score of um, a C, if you think about it in terms of letters. The other thing that we want to focus on here is the range is correct, but with a fair rating, you will ultimately show a few things to potential borrowers. One second. Okay, sorry about that. Dog was playing. All right, so there are three credit bureaus essentially that will determine where you fall within a range. The first, and in no particular order, will be TransUnion. The next will be Experian, and the third, Equifax. So these are the three credit bureaus. The information and the items that you will see present on each one may be different. The reason being, they work, they don't work in tandem. So if an item is removed, let's say you had a credit card and the credit card was closed, it will not show that the credit card is closed on TransUnion, and TransUnion does not contact Experian, or Experian contacting Equifax. So it's a matter of when it is received by the actual institution. So let's say you have a credit card with Bank of America. The Bank of America credit card is closed. It may take a while in order for it to be received by TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. So that's why you may have a TransUnion account that gives you a credit score of, let's say, 700, an Experian account which gives you a credit score of 710, and Equifax accounts that gives you a credit score of 699. So it's going to vary based on the items that appear and how the items appear within the status. Um, this is determined and visible on the items, are visible on your credit report, which you will see in the next few slides, but the credit score does not appear on your credit report. You actually have to request that separately. So it's important for you to understand that. Anyway, when you have a C rating for credit, it communicates to the potential lender a few things. The first thing it communicates is, hey, you have considerable amount of debt, but you're meeting the obligations within the grace period. We've already gone over the consumer protection laws, and you understand that before you're obligated to pay a bill, you have that 14-day window, right? The 14-day window to pay it off. So because of that, you have some time to look over any discrepancies, make sure everything's done. You also want to check your credit report periodically just to make sure everything is on the up and up. However, at the fair rating, not only is it saying that this person happens to pay their their bill balance, or pay their bill within the grace period, the 14-day window, but the payments that they're making aren't fully covering the amount owed. So, for instance, you have a credit card. The credit card statement you received 14 days prior to it being due, under the Fair Credit Billing Act, says that you have a current balance of $200. But the minimum payment indicates that you only have to pay $15 a month to keep the card open and active. You pay $15 a month. Even though you pay $15 a month, you still have a balance on your credit card. So let me explain the difference between each two. So when you have a bank account, if you have a balance, it's a good thing, because the balance means this is how much money you actually have in the account. However, with a line of credit, such as a credit card, a loan, if you have a balance, this actually means it's the amount of debt that you have. So this is the amount that you owe. So with that example, you have a billing statement indicates that you owe $200, but you only pay $15 because that's the minimum payment. A fair credit score is going to indicate that this person's making payments on time, but it's not for the full amount that they actually owe. So there is some type of debt or some balance of debt that's hanging over them. And then you may have potentially a few discrepancies on your credit report. It's not always accurate, but it just communicates that, hey, either this person has additional accounts that may not be really within good standing, or they have a considerable amount of debt. So the considerable amount of debt can come from medical bills, student loans, or if you have a mortgage. So those are considered the considerable amounts of debts that are most common on most individuals' credit scores. Um, but ultimately, that's what the credit reading will communicate to you. All right, so the next one we have is a poor credit score. Now, this is where the numbers are going to change. The highest you will have is a 649, but the range will differ. Instead of a 550, you're going to have a 600. This gives you the rating of a D if it were to convert to a letter grade. A poor credit score communicates a few things. You may not be in a position to take on any additional debt. Now, this is where the industry doesn't really harp on it as much, but you need to understand. Sometimes life happens. So we've gone over a few scenarios in class, where individuals have had to make decisions on whether or not they should go to college, how they're going to pay for college, if they need a new car. Um, when looking for a car, would it be better for them to purchase a newer car versus a used car? The information that they're checking to see if the car has ever been in a wreck. We've also talked about insurances, understanding how insurances are picked, understanding how insurances are measured based on the individual risk. So all of these things can have an impact on the choices that you make, ultimately resulting in the credit score. So, for instance, we understand that if there happens to be a loss of income, and we've talked about this as we've discussed, the difference between spending habits and why people spend, how it's often tied to their emotion, and it's often tied to their personality. So, with that understanding, if there is a loss of income, there may be a time in your life or in a person's life where they have to take out a considerable amount of debt in order to survive. But the goal is, and it may not be completely manageable, is to try to address it as much as you can, as soon as you can. If you can address it immediately, it's not going to be the end of the world, but at some point you want to address it. If the longer you go without addressing it, it may have an impact on how you can operate within our financial um, area, or within the financial industries within the United States. Within the United States, there are several things that you need to have. But one thing is constant, a medium of exchange, which will be currency. And in order to be able to afford most things, especially if it refers to a line of credit, you need to have a decent credit score. So at a poor credit rating, it communicates that you're not in a position to take on any more debt because of either the amount of debt that you have or the inconsistent income that has been visible within your report, and also sometimes the inability to establish credit. You are first starting off, you don't have any credit established. But once you do, you get one credit card, very low balance, and you may spend like $10 on a card, just to make sure that you have definitely enough if your income isn't high enough. So the longer you take to build your credit, it could also result in you having poor credit or not enough credit. So there's insufficient information needed, or insufficient information available to report that you have a quote unquote good credit score. After the video, you're going to be given a few examples, and we'll do them in class to simulate the score to kind of see how it will yield. For the next section, the income may be questionable because it's not consistent. Remember, most things are going to be reported. We talked about a person being hired at a job. If you are physically unemployed, you will appear on their employee roster, and that employer is obligated to pay taxes, a percentage of the taxes on your behalf. For remember Medicare, Social Security, and then you absorb the entire cost for FICA. So when it comes back to the credit score, for poor, you want to understand that there may be some type of challenges, either a high or undesirable debt to income level, inconsistent unemployment, possessions, repossessions, bankruptcies, things of that nature. So at this point, you're going to be paying a few things, and we'll talk about what will happen at that range. All right, and lastly, we have the other section, which will go from a 449 to a 599, and whatever happens at this level will definitely happen here. At this point, it means that even though things are happening, even though you knew that you took out a certain amount, you're not looking. You're not looking at all to see what is happening. You're not looking to see what you need to do. You're basically living in the moment, or you're too overwhelmed to ultimately determine what you will do. So you have on your shades at this point. So nothing is really visible to you at this time because you're not really paying attention to what's going on. So it will result ultimately in a credit score. Make sure you understand that as your credit score is being computed, remember just a few takeaways from the slide. The items that are listed on either TransUnion, Experian, or Equifax may differ resulting in a difference in the credit scores that you are given. The credit scores are also converted to a point system, and the point system will fall under the ranges, or is considered to be the ranges that you will see here. And then that can also be translated into a credit rating, which can also be identified by giving you a letter grade, which is associated with the range of credit that you have established so far or demonstrated. Anything that is visible on the Bureau, we've already gone over the Consumer Protection Acts, like the Fair and Accurate Transaction Act. Um, Remember, you understand that in the Fair Credit Reporting Act, that you have the ability to look at the reports. You can request one annually, so you can request one from TransUnion, another from Equifax, and another from Experian annually to look over it and see what it has. There are also several apps, not endorsing one, but one that gets a lot of attention and marketing attention on commercials is Credit Karma. Your bank may also have one as well. Um, your bank may also have one as well that will allow you to be able to look at your score or assist in simulating your score to help you make a better decision. is the final one. The next video is going to be a lot shorter. This is going to be the actual screen telling you everything that you may want to know, high interest rates, things like that, so on and so forth. Okay, so you can also look at the transcript when you get to certain slides if you need it written down. But I'll give you like a quick overview of everything at the end regarding your credit score so that it matches up to your notes. So, okay. So, basically, your credit rating will be indicated by A through F. It determines your credit worthiness check, we know that, and it determines if you'll be able to repay it, basically, if they should trust you. And then your credit rating, remember, is always going to be based on your history. So remember, history is important. Okay, so for your credit inquiry, this is basically just how many times you've applied for credit, or someone has pulled your credit report to see, hey, should we consider this person, or let's see if they're actually being approved, will be approved. A lot of businesses will give you like promotions and say, hey, we'll give you a free bag, or we'll give you a free shirt, or we'll give you 30% off if you just apply for a credit card. Whether you get approved or not, you still get it either way. Do not do it. Caution, cautious, be cautious. Yes, it's a good way to save money, but is it really worth it though? In the end, probably not. Oof, Samson. It's probably not worth it in the end. So you want to make sure that you are having your report pulled for things of value. You have to refinance a car or get a car loan or a mortgage or other things like that. Oof, oof. Okay, so basically the bottom portion is an example of inquiries. Pay attention to the dates. Okay, these are relatively spaced apart because there's a 6-year difference. If you apply for um, a line of credit within 30 days, so let's say you apply for 5, it may not have the worst impact on you because it looks like you're applying for it within that moment you're shopping around. But if you apply for 130 days, then 90 days, then 60 days, then 120 days, it looks like I'm going here and being denied, so I go to point B. Point B denied me, so now I move to point C. Point C denied me, I move to point D. Point D said, get the heck out of my face, absolutely not, so I move to point F. And the loop just continues. So that's when you have what's called a hard inquiry. Hard inquiries are basically when you're applying for a line of credit, but then you have a soft inquiry where the business will ultimately determine, hey, I just need to make sure that this address matches the person that we give the line of credit to. That does not have an impact on your score at all. So in this aspect, a soft inquiry is Gucci. A hard inquiry is if there are too many, then it can be detrimental to you. When the business is given permission to check your account, it's called an inquiry. You're basically telling them, yes, I would like to stay here. Yes, I would like to apply for this. Please check my credit and let me know if you'll take me. Okay, so that's essentially what it is. So we're at the point where we're going to end with our checklist. And first thing you want to consider is pay your bills early or on time. Make sure that you're checking your billing statement and credit reports all the time. For anything you do not recognize or authorize. So get it out. Don't overspend. Balance your budget. If you can't afford it, don't do it. If you know you need to pay attention to it, as daunting as it may be, do it. Establish good credit history. Improve your credit credit score by developing best practices. And why? Because history matters. That concludes this video. The next video goes over the breakdown of the information you actually need in order to fill out the chart that I give you.